Detention is a gorgeous 2D side-scrolling psychological horror game about a guilt-ridden teenage girl trapped in a nightmarish school. Atmosphere. Detention's beautiful abstract visuals and haunting music give the game an unworldly feel. Its scenery changes like its emotions and range from despair to loneliness. The school is cold and sterile, the red house and teacher's shack are organic and warm, but everything feels decayed and long forgotten. Blood paints certain walls and religious marks and talismans cover other things to ward off evil, but these protective wards unsettled me. The characters are stark white and colourless, standing boldly against the dark backgrounds like they're from a different world. It's supernatural in the way it seems like worlds have collided so that your character existing where they are is made possible. Detention is set in Taiwan in the 1960s in an era referred to as the White Terror, in which the country was under strict martial law. Detention's unique aesthetic, location and time period give the game an oppressive feeling of dread and unearthly fear. That's one Harry Mason. Scares. The enemy designs are fantastic, and to be based in folklore somehow makes them more real. The Lingard make noises that sound like delighted laughing and disturbed crying mixed together. The game makes you hold your breath to walk past them, and these moments are incredibly intense due to the fact that you can only hold your breath for so long. Triggering the Lingard sends them into a frenzy of malicious screams, which is pretty frightening. They never killed me though. The Lantern Spirit takes the award for me. Its slow movements and air of spirituality, not to mention the whispers and chanting that come with its appearance, are so unnatural to me. If you face it, it'll pick you up and strangle you in an instant. You have to turn your back on it and hold your breath so that it can smell you, and then it will walk away, if you can hold your breath long enough. These enemies are amazing. It's a shame they weren't in the second half of the game. The game also relies on jump scares, and some of these are predictable, but most of them weren't. One of the more memorable ones sees you manually dragging a Stanley knife across the neck of a dead body of someone you know. The act itself is extremely unpleasant, and after you've collected the blood like you think you're supposed to do, for a brief second his eyes open to look at you. Checking again and they're closed and he's still dead. The implications of this too I found disturbing, as it wasn't sure if I was supposed to be doing this to begin with. The overall game is only scary for a few parts, but what it does well. That's 2 Harry Masons. Sound design. The soundtrack is ghostly and ethereal, but also dark and disturbing. Its use of East Asian instruments makes some parts of it feel somewhat divine. It reminds me of a more haunting Silent Hill soundtrack. There's a playable piano in the game, and the notes you play fit up with the soundtrack, and that always makes me happy. The sound effects, especially that of the knife part, are very realistic. Some nice directional audio too helps with hearing where the Lingard are and when the Lantern Spirit approaches. That's 3 Harry Masons. Gore. The aforementioned throat-slitting scene is the most obvious part. There's a river of sloshing blood and some splattered on the walls, but the large majority of the game is devoid of it. However, the lack of gore in the game only makes these parts stand out more. That's 4 Harry Masons. Story. A haunting recollection of events retold. Wei, a teenager in Greenwood School, falls asleep in class and awakens to find school abandoned following a typhoon. After making his way to the auditorium, he finds a girl asleep on the chair in the middle of the stage. The characters suddenly switch, and Ray awakens on the same chair to find Wei, dead, hanging upside down from the ceiling. Bewildered, Ray tries to find out what happened. The story is a masterfully told emotional adventure through the guilt, tragedy and despair, love lost and lives taken. The cruel time it was set in and the spirituality of the game really do make this one of the best stories I've experienced in a game, making the final score 5 out of 5 Harry Masons. Don't expect to be horrified, this game is more about atmosphere than terror. Ultimately, this game is frightening because some of it is grounded in reality. There aren't many games that really hit the nail this well. Detention isn't quite the masterpiece, as the latter half focuses mostly on the story than the horror, but it's still a fantastic game. Again, I'd like to remind you this whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I was sharing in the tragedy of the game, I did not scream like a banshee or run away from the computer, and I advise you don't either. There'll be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching, and always go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.